Welcome to my home studio and to something that I've been interested in doing for quite some time. Very basically, the videos on the YouTube channel walk a fine line in between teaching and entertainment, and I always feel like I want to teach more and give more insight into what I'm doing, but we then lose subscribers and interest because I'm talking too much. What I've decided to do now is basically film the video, put it out on the main YouTube channel, and then Patreon supporters and membership people on YouTube, and then eventually Crimson Guitars Extras, which is the side channel, say 6 months or a year down the line, we'll get these videos where I go into much greater depth into what I did on the video. This is the inaugural one of these, so, well, I hope the software goes and does what it's supposed to do. The only way I can do this is with a headphone in my ear. I tried to set up my iSotunes, but the computer did not like that. For some reason, it works. It sends the audio to me, but it didn't record it. So yeah, I don't know, and I'm not technologically minded enough to do that. So anyway, I am going to click on some buttons here and see if this works. Fingers, they be crossed. Start recording. Welcome to Crimson Guitars, I'm Ben Crow, and I am going to be building, finally, on YouTube, a P-Bass. I have been asked for this many times, and bass players are getting... Oh, the pause button does work. So yes, I have been asked really a lot, but for some reason bass building seems to have become much more interesting in recent years. We've had, over the last couple of years, a massive upsurge in people asking about basses, and I've always meant to do one, but it's got to the point where really it's just an insult that I haven't. So yeah, I did, and I've got a lot more planned as well. More and more vocals, so here we go. Burn it. I like this intro. Haha, yay! I'm going to do a very straight, very standard P-Bass build. Or P-Bass. If anything that I build can be called straight and standard. I did go somewhat insane with the materials, of course, which isn't necessarily the best of plans. Bass type build, very standard in construction. I am going a little bit crazy with materials. The neck is highly flamed sycamore. The fretboard is... Now, what a lot of people ask me about neck construction and neck materials and all of that, and in this video you'll see later that I do go properly insane with the amount of carbon fiber stiffening rods I use. In reality, I should have cut the neck, and I should have made a multi-laminate neck. This fretboard that I'm about to talk about is insanely figured. It's beautiful, but has little to no structural integrity, which comes back to bite us later in the build. Burl oak, because I fancied it. A little bit flexible. But I've only just noticed that I'm currently wearing the same shirt now as I was in that video, and that was not planned at all. But we should be okay. And the body is going to be, well, it's ash. It's basically swamp ash with some fantastic figuring. And it's going to be pretty cool. Let's get on with it. Spalting. It's spalting. I completely forgot what the word spalting was. Okay, the fool. So yeah, very basically, a tree is chopped down and then left to air dry for a number of years, in the UK at least, in our climate. Some trees like beech and ash to a lesser extent, etc., will spolt. Sometimes you even get spolted sycamore, and it's a relatively difficult process to judge correctly. If you let the, I want to say the word bacteriophage, I'm sure it's probably wrong, but if you let the bacteria, the growth, it is alive. If you let it grow and eat the wood more and more and more, then you end up with something that can't actually be used. It's far too soft. And in this case, this piece of wood was slightly on the other side of that. In places, a little bit too soft. But, well, we will deal with that. Oh my gosh. On with the build. Where do we go? So, I mean, really. So I'm trying to get as much of the spalting in as possible and avoiding the cracks. There's a crack here. So that's something else that you get with spalted wood, and you need to be very, very careful about that as part of it curing and drying. So you will, what we tend to do is we will buy a bulk load of timber, half a tree or something like that, and either it will be from a local timber yard who doesn't have a kiln, and we will then dry it in our own timber rooms for a year, 2 years at times, depending on how large the wood is. But the problem is that if it's gone through a kiln, which this stuff had done, if it dries a little bit too fast from the level, in the UK, an air-dried timber tends to settle at about 14%. Once it's gone through the kiln, though, we expect it to be 7%. If it's dried far too fast, then you will end up with cracks, and a lot of the times you won't see them. Now, something you can do is just stroke the wood like so, and listen to what you listen to what's happening, and you hear a difference. So if you've got a shake in the middle, you'll be able to hear that there's a difference in the tone, and there's something going on in there. Now, with all of this talk in mind, seriously, if you don't have a good moisture meter, you can either get a good moisture meter or get yourself the Wagner. I always want to call it Wagner because I feel that's more in keeping, but the Wagner Orion moisture meter. This thing is, well, I've used the word insane several times in this video already, and we're only a couple of minutes in, so it's insane, and just amazing. So we use those. It can send data to your phone, so you can set up a task. For example, you'll say, okay, this is drying room 1, this is drying room 2, this is kiln number 3. I don't even have 1 kiln, let alone 3. And you can then say, okay, fine, I'm sending this data to kiln number 3, and then it'll save the time, it'll save the moisture readings of the timber inside, it'll save the temperature readings, it'll save the relative humidity of the room, etc. All of this data will then be on your phone, and you'll be able to see over the weeks or months that you're drying that particular timber, or this particular timber, exactly how fast it's drying, whether it is drying, whether it's sort of reached equilibrium. It even tells you, so for example, in this room here, I'll be able to pop in the details and say, at what equilibrium, what is the, I forget the term now because I am silly, but what is the resting equilibrium moisture content of timber left in this room likely to be, basically. So it'll take all of the readings of the room that it's in and tell you what you're likely to get to, 12%, 14%, etc. It's incredibly cool, and I've gone on a total digression, and I apologize. I'm wearing a different watch today than I was then, though, so there's a thing. Now here's something else very quickly. It's people constantly ask me what pencils I use. I use the Graph Gear 1000 by Pentel. I'm not in any way sponsored by them, although, well, I was going to say some free pencils would be great, but it's not required. I've had this 0.31 for nearly 2 years now. It's the longest a pencil has ever survived in my care. And I've had this 0.9mm one for a year plus. One of the nice things is, as you click that, it pulls the tube inside, and they're fantastic. And then also templates at Crimson. We're going to. It depends on when you're watching this, but we're investing in a laser cutter because we want to produce templates properly. The one step that I skipped in this build was that I'm starting with pre-made templates. A good template is nigh on essential for a build, especially a build like this. If you're making a custom body shape, etc., it's less so. You just need a pickup or two, and or pickup template or two, etc. But yeah, a good template helps. That'll do nicely. Just missed the crack there. You can also see it's cutting very, very easily. This is very slightly sped up, but this is a very small bandsaw with a. It's not a 1/4 of an inch blade. I think it's a 3/8 of an inch blade, but it's cutting through very, very quickly and nicely. Good little bandsaw, which I miss desperately. I don't have a bandsaw here at the moment. Sometimes it's just easier to skip over the tight corners and go in later, unless you're desperately trying to save particularly special wood. Do it as efficiently as you can. I am assuming that every single one of you knows and uses and loves this trick. There's another YouTuber who recently did a video calling it the blue tape trick, and this doesn't actually work with masking tapes that have got a shiny surface, or at least it doesn't work anywhere near as well. So yeah, just bog standard, normal, white masking tape is what you need. And of course a Pentel 1000 Graph Gear something pencil. I do tend to cut off the excess little bits of masking tape. Just it can get or sort of caught up in your router base, etc. So yeah. Make sure everything lines up. This is one of my favourite features of the Triton router table, just how easy it is to adjust. Now, what I'm doing here I don't use router tables anywhere near as much as I should. In fact, I'm making a concerted effort to use them because they are good. They just scare me because essentially I use a router handheld and have done for 20 years now. Wow, it really is like 20 years now. And I know where I can cut and which direction I can cut. So you want to be going with the grain, not against it. You go against the grain, it'll rip the guitar out of your hand and snap the headstock and, potentially be rather catastrophic. With the router table, it's exactly opposite. You're pushing the wood through and it just takes a level of concentration more than I generally have to spare, especially when I'm filming. So, and to illustrate that, I'm drawing where the grain is, where the end grain is going, and you want to go down the hill with the grain so that you don't cause any issues. And I'm going to mark that out on the guitar here. And yeah, the easy trick, or the nice trick about this is you'll go down the hill one way using the bearing that's currently on the template. So yeah, what you can see, sorry, you get it all here at Crimson, is I'm going down the hill and skipping the cross grain stuff, skipping the other sections. I will then lower the router cutter, like so, and I can then go all the way around the instrument because I've already cut away the other material, so I'm not running the risk of damaging it at all. And now I'm using the top bearing. These are Radian router cutters. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. They're a very, very small UK company that make fantastic 3 or 4 flute cutters. And this one, the gentleman, or one of the gentlemen, is a hobby guitar builder, and he designed this specifically for guitar building. I love this shot. Now, what I should have done, and what I almost always do, is pre-drill the any cavities that you're going to route before you put the template on. Draw where you're going, figure out the depths, make absolutely certain you know how deep you're going. In fact, I made this a little bit too deep for the pickups in the end, and pre-drill using a Forstner bit. Everything in this workshop is basically within reach. It's crazy. And that saves your router cutters. Router cutters are more expensive than Forstner bits. Good router cutters are, at least. And this makes... A Forstner bit will remove a lot of material very, very rapidly. Removing the same amount of material in the same amount of time with a router is actually quite scary. Routers are surprisingly gentle, and you have to take relatively small cuts, either a full length cut but you're only taking small passes each time, or you route sort of a quarter of an inch or half an inch at a time and go many times around. Like I'm doing here. This is softer wood though, so it does work. I find myself missing this workshop. For one thing, it's warmer than it is here at the moment. Obviously, one of the best things about the masking tape and super glue trick is just how little residue is left if you do it properly.
Woo!
Now, this is something else that Obviously, it's obvious when you know it, but it's less so if you haven't thought of it. Because I was cutting in several passes, I used a router cutter that only had a ½ inch, maybe a ¾ of an inch, but I think a ½ inch depth of cut. So the blades were only ½ an inch deep, and then you had the bearing. I couldn't go full depth without hitting the collet of the router and thus ruining my template. However, you remove the template, and in this case I gained myself another 9mm without having to change the router cutter at all. So here we go. We're in the full PPE, so goggles and Isotune Freeze, I think they are. I probably should be wearing a dust mask as well. The reason I don't tend to, at least when using that, is because I've got fantastic extraction on the router in that workshop. Now, I did have a brand new template that didn't have the center lines marked on the end, so I needed to sort that out. Centerline is king and key and incredibly important. The template here as well, as you can see, just for location purposes, has the pickups already routed into it as well. So that, combined with the centerline, gives me a perfect neck pocket. I hesitate to think about how much super glue and accelerator I use on a sort of yearly basis. It's going to be in litres. Depth stop. Depth stops are very, very, very important. The one problem is they are also not necessarily to be trusted. That small section, the knurled nut that you push up and down that acts as the stop, if you're using the router for any length of time, you run the risk of rotating that down and through. I'm wondering about actually adjusting that and having some sort of a lock in there, maybe a grub screw, so that you can set the depth and then put a grub screw in so that it's absolutely to be trusted. Again with the PPE and the fantastic watch. I really have a problem. I love watches and sexy shots. That's a good shot. So here you can see I'm taking maybe just over 1/4 of an inch in each pass. Double checking the depth. And here you can see that despite the fact that I've got the extraction going, the chips are clearing through the open-ended neck pocket. So I should be wearing a dusk mask, really. A dusk mask, from dusk till dawn, from dusk till bass guitars. Shoot me, please. Alrighty. Some progress is made. All right, some serious progress has been made. This is a very straightforward build, and I'm having a blast. So neck pocket, well, much of the routing has been done. I'm going to do a little bit of finessing of the shape, just make sure it's all good. We'll do the roundovers and then a carve, and I do need to drill a hole for the access, but we'll get there in the end. Fun times, eh? Okay. So I'm going to go on a sanding machine. Or am I? No. No, I'm not. More routing. More routing. Roundovers. This is one of the other fantastic things about the router table is, with at least the Triton router table, and in combination with the Triton router, as you push the router up through the table using the quick height adjustment, once it gets to a point where the collet is extended above the table, which isn't the case with most routers, it also locks the spindle so that the router, so that you can basically change the bit like so, really easily. At the same time, it physically stops access to the on-off switch, so that you cannot turn the router on while the spindle is locked. And here we go with another Radian router cutter, actually. Just a nice big old roundover. So you see I'm going down the hill there, up the hill. I wasn't really taking into account where the grain was going. I'm just going all the way around the guitar. You'll see I'm taking a small pass and then going back and finishing it. If I'd taken it all in one huge shot, and if I didn't have a relatively sharp, relatively new cutter, I would be worried about tear out even here. And also, you saw me just there route a small section away at the neck pocket. As I routed the roundover, I actually pulled the guitar away to reduce the size of the roundover. At this point in the build, I am still planning on using a standard neck plate, and I didn't want to have too large of a roundover, so that neck plate would not work. And here we go, small roundover. Well, changing. Even I forget I have head tattoos until I see them sometimes in a video like this. Like, whoa, what was he thinking? Okay, so here you can see I've got that fiddly little bit of wood coming into the side of the neck pocket. I could potentially have chopped that away with a chisel beforehand. I'm being very, very, very gentle at that edge with the router. The last thing I want to do is put too much pressure on it and basically blow through. It's actually quite crumbly at that point. Now, many people asked me why I drilled this hole. They thought I was going to do something clever. They thought I had to have a plan. And what is Ben going to put in that hole? Because in reality, you don't have a neck pickup to route through to the middle pickup to then route through to the control cavity. And I seriously considered bullshitting. I seriously considered saying, well, actually, I'm trying to get a miniature smoke machine to put in that hole so that I've got smoke coming up from behind the pickups. In reality, it's pure muscle memory. I tend to build guitars. I tend to build twin humbucker guitars, or at least guitars with multiple pickups. And you just always, throughout the build, you're saying, don't forget to drill the access hole before you glue the neck in. Don't forget to drill the hole between the pickups so that you can wire it up before you put the neck in. And yeah, in this case, I did that, and it was utterly unnecessary and caused a lot of people to scratch their heads. I am very fallible. Anyway, this is the hole that I should have drilled. That doesn't sound good. Look at all that space. It really is very important to tidy up as you go. Put the tools away where they belong. Just keep everything going nice and tidy and organized, and your life will be easier. There are a few things more frustrating than trying to find a tool that you had 5 minutes ago and you don't know where it is. And you spend half an hour looking for it. So, you'll notice that I started sanding there without using dust extraction, which was problematic. I then actually went and got the dust extraction from the router table. It's not the best of joints between the Mirka and the dust extractor, but it really is very, very important. I'm very, very lucky in that we are using a Mirka sander here, which is pretty much the industry standard. There are other options of brushless random orbital sanders that seem to be, if not made in the same factory, then at least in the same mold and the same quality levels. So yeah, do a little bit of research. There are some out there. They are well worth the money. A good random orbital sander is life-saving. And this is where, because the wood is so soft in places, it sands very quickly, but it can also go a little bit awry if you're not too careful. This is the first time I've watched this video since it went live. I'm rather enjoying it myself. If you're very, very careful, you can use sanders to round over the, to sand the roundovers. It's generally better to do it by hand, but you can get part of the way using a sander. Now, out comes a pencil again, and this is where I'm rather presently actually going back to my days in a shed. The first time round, I used to use a belt sander like this all the time for all manner of jobs. It isn't the most effective choice, not really. Frankly, an angle grinder with a flap disc or a carving disc like you get from Sabertooth and various other companies will do the job much, much quicker. But then again, when I make the videos, I tend to try and utilize machines and machineries and tools, etc., that people are likely to have about their place. So personally, I would rather use for this particular task, a gouge, a mallet, followed by a Japanese saw-ass, probably. But the the belt sander did work, and the Triton one is a very good machine. It's got yeah, a huge number of very interesting little features actually, and yeah, it did very well. I tend to finish pretty much all carving with the random orbital sander though. Now the interesting thought when looking at this spalting is that I think that if we were to wet the guitar and put it in a relatively damp environment, the bacteria in that spalting would actually basically wake up, become less dormant, and start eating the wood again. So yeah, don't leave your guitar in a damp and cold environment. I you know, we all do anyway, but hey, damp and cold, damp and warm. Ah, I failed. Again with the dust extraction. I find myself wondering at times like this, when you're looking at the giant wall of tools in the background, just how many of them are needed. And there are people who say, you know, they've got to buy one, get one, so one in, one out thing going on for tools, for watches, for, yeah, I don't know. I nearly said wives. That comment's going to get me in trouble because mine watches. Well, not in trouble because it's the right way. Shush, Ben. Come on. Okay, anyway, back to that. Any tool that you are likely to use if you've got the space and you love it enough, you should have. Just feel free to, you know, partake. There is always, and I'm finding the distinct lack of some things here, there's tools that you need, and when you need them, you really need them. Okay. Ah. This has been great fun. So what I have here is a mostly sanded, completely carved, and pretty much good to go P-base body. It was simpler to do because it was a one piece rather than two. I have not used hand tools. I am avoiding what I distinctly remember watching me use a chisel and a hand drill, but we'll gloss over that. Work with, and what I love, to keep it as simple as humanly possible for somebody to work in their garage or with a limited group of tools, and yeah, takes me back to when I started. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, and you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe, hit the notification button, click like, let me know in the comments below what you think of the instrument so far, of what you think I should do with it, because I have a few. I'm keeping the build at its core very simple and straightforward. But I'm going to do something, one or two things maybe, that are a little bit interesting. So yeah, I see all of the comments, I reply to many of them. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. See you soon. There's still quite a lot of sanding to do. Oh yeah. Well, there we have it. Day one of the bass build. Now, everything that he just said about the like and subscribe and all that, of course, please, absolutely. But also, please let me know what you think of this format, since this is the first one of these videos. I think I need to lose the hat. I also need a heater in here. For some reason, it's very cold today. So yeah, let me know what you think. Has it been useful? Is it interesting? Do you have any questions? Do you want to see more like this? Do you have any videos that have been put out by other YouTubers that you want to see a sort of reaction style video from me on. There was a sentence in there somewhere. Yeah, I'm sure you can figure it out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being amazing. I really appreciate your support. I will see you very soon. This is so surreal. I literally just watched me do that in the same sort of clothes and stuff, and here I am doing it again. It's weird. Thank you. Goodbye. I hope this has worked. I need to stop the recording now. And in fact, I'm going to leave this recording so you can see if it works. Hold on. Software. We're at 41 minutes and 3 seconds. I've stopped recording. Now I need to shut that software down, or it basically stops my headphones from working. Is this the one? Has the audio worked? We don't know yet because we haven't got audio going yet. Go on. So confusing. Yes! We have audio. Okay, there we go. It appears to have worked. So I would like to say thank you. Goodbye. Cheerio. See you soon. Rock and roll. Rock on. Stay strong. Just whatever you do, don't use this in the video because I come across as a fool. I don't want people to know the truth.